The question that decides who gets rich in the next 10 years and who just gets used. Who owns the thing that is actually scarce? I think the timing is as good as it has ever been. The world is trying to diversify where its chips come from. Nobody wants every advanced part made in one strait that could close on a bad Tuesday. It has always worked this way, AI or no AI. Value accrues to whoever controls the scarce thing. This week, the two biggest stories in Southeast Asian tech were a chip program and a cable. Not a funding round, not a unicorn, not somebody's ninth super app pivot or whatever it may end up being. It's a government-run chip incubator in Penang and a 3,600 kilometers of fiber being dropped on the seabed between India and Singapore. And I want to tell you why those two fairly boring stories laid side by side are the most honest picture of this region that we're seeing right now. Because both of them are asking the same question, the question I ask in every partner meeting at Indelible, the question that decides who gets rich in the next 10 years and who just gets used. Who owns the thing that is actually scarce? I'm Kevin Brocklin. This is CF Startups, real, raw, relatable. Now let's get into it. So to kick things off, let's start in Malaysia, because on the 1st of July, something happened that would be very easy to laugh at. The government, through MTDC, the Malaysia Tech Development Corporation, or whatever that stands for, launched the first cohort of a program called Semicon Start Malaysia. 10 companies picked from 39 that applied, a pot of 10 million ringgit for the first phase, up to 1 million ringgit per company, a structured program to help some local semiconductor startups get off the ground. Khazanah, the sovereign wealth fund's money in the mix. Now, million ringgit apiece is basically $250,000. So we're not talking massive funding, but we're talking funding above the other grants. Now, if you've been in this region as long as I have, your first reaction to government launches a program to build a high-tech industry is a small, tired sigh. Because we've seen this film. We know how it ends. We know the history. Malaysia has a graveyard of these. Grand corridors, MOU signings, innovation valleys, state venture funds that wrote checks into slide decks and got slide decks back. The pattern is always the same. Big announcement, big number, a ribbon, a photo, a handshake, and then 2 years later, you go looking for the companies and there's nobody home. It's been that way on repeat. So when I first saw the Semicon Start headline, I had that sigh ready to go too. And then I honestly stopped because this one has the potential to be different. So I have to do a little bit of positive spin. It has a potential to be different in a way that actually matters. And I need you to understand exactly why, because the difference is the whole point of why I'm doing this topic on this episode. And the difference is that this time, there's already a real industry sitting underneath the program. There's already a semicon industry in Malaysia. Penang is not a hopeful press release. Penang has been doing semicon assembly and testing for decades. A serious slice of the world's chips pass through Malaysian hands on their way to being packaged and tested. That is not a pitch. That is payroll. That is factories that have run for 30 years. That's experience. That is a workforce that already knows the difference between a good and a bad. So the Malaysian bet is not let's conjure a chip industry out of nothing, the bed is much narrower and, potentially much smarter, depending upon how executed it is. We already own one rung of this ladder, the packaging and test rung, the lower margin rung. Can we climb one step up into design, into the part where the money is actually at? Now, mind you, this is not their first program, but here's the part that made me sit up a little bit more. It is already been happening without the program. Well, without this program. Um, just recently, in a not past episode, we talked about Penang company Skychip, which listed on Bursa's main market. They do chip design, real design, high bandwidth memory, chiplet work, the genuinely hard stuff. A homegrown Malaysian design house went public on the Malaysian exchange. And actually, before recording this, I saw a story that was insinuating that Cerebus, the US chip company that just went public as well, maybe leveraging Skychip for some design. I haven't validated that, but it was in my news feed immediately before recording this. And there's other IC design programs. There's the IMD licensing deal that Malaysia did. There are a handful of other things that have been happening over the last couple of years, trying to build off an industry that already exists. So there is proof that the ceiling is real, that is a local company that climbed the exact rung. The government is now trying to help 10 more companies climb. So, and it sits on the top of the national semiconductor strategy from a couple years back, which said out loud that Malaysia wants to move up from the low value into design and research, the higher value. Penang has put its own money behind it too, with design programs and a chip design academy to fix the talent gap. We have similar efforts going on in Selangor. They've just set up their own. They're doing a state-run fund as well. So do I think this works? I think the timing is as good as it has ever been. The world is trying to diversify where its chips come from. Nobody wants every advanced part made in one strait that could close on a bad Tuesday. Malaysia is neutral, capable, and already in the supply chain. If there was ever a decade to try this climb, it is the one. We are seeing a large demand for atoms and not just bits. And this is moving into semicon and moving into the exact right timing. But I am going to say the hard part out loud because that is what this show is for. Capital is not the thing that was ever really missing here. Now, founders that have ever tried to raise capital may start arguing with me, but Malaysia has never actually lacked money for ambition. What it has lacked every single time is patience and expertise arriving in the same envelope as the cash. R1 million and a short program do not necessarily build a chip design house. Chip design is a long-term sport played by people who have failed at it a few times first, have iterated, picked themselves back up. If Semicon Start is a check in a demo day, it will join the graveyard. If it comes with real design mentors, real customers introduced, real follow-on capital that does not vanish when the photo op ends, then it has a shot. So the thing that I will be watching and the thing that you should be watching too is not the 10 million ringgit amount that's being put into this program. It's whether anyone whether anyone attached has expertise in it. Money is easy. It sounds hard, but there's plenty of it. Knowing what to do with it is the more scarce part on behalf of the programs and on behalf of the recipients. So hold that thought. Money is easy. Knowing what to do with it is scarce. We are going to come back to exactly that point. You started a company to build a product, not to run a back office. But here you are. You pay an accounting firm every month, and once a year, you get a clean set of accounts. That is compliance. It's not clarity. It will not tell you if you run out of cash in March. It will not tell you what one new hire does to your runway. And it will not answer the question every investor asks: where's this business heading? So I built your CFO, your back office in a box. Your books keeps your accounting books current, and your CFO puts your forecast forward. In one login, your actuals flowing straight into your Outlook. Link your strategic initiatives, like a hire or a price change, to exactly what it does to your runway before you commit. Investor ready, operationally ready, in the currency that you work in. It is the back office I run across my own companies. Get your finances settled for your business today at yourcfo.tech. That's yourcfo.tech. But now, let me transition to the seabed. Um, Here, there's an interesting story because this week it was reported that Microsoft, together with a Singapore company called Lightstorm, is leading a group building a new subsea cable. They are calling it I2C. Assuming that's how you're supposed to pronounce that. It's roughly a 3,600 kilometer of fiber linking India to Malaysia and to Singapore, targeted to go live around 2029, built for one reason: AI and data center demand. Now, standard disclaimer for me, because I read these announcements the way I read a pitch deck. This is a 2029 project. Consortium details on these things move around, and I have not seen any final paperwork, just a news story. So treat the specifics as direction, not gospel or not final word. And do not let anyone quote you a finished number on a cable that is not in the water yet. But the direction is what matters, and the direction tells you something. The direction is telling us that every few weeks now, there is a story like this: a new cable, a new data center, a new hyperscaler campus somewhere with cheap power and a friendly minister. And every single one of them gets written up somewhere: Southeast Asian digital investment, billions pouring into the region. What a momentous occasion for us, celebrations, etc. But let me tell you what I actually see when I read those. Maybe I'm a bit cynical, but I see the region being wired up as a very good place to host other people's compute. The fiber lands here, the data centers sit here, they use our power, our water, our land, our seabed, and that is real economic activity, and I'm not pretending it's nothing. But that's not where the value comes out. But I ask the only question that matters: who owns the compute layer? Who owns the demand sitting on top of that cable? Um, and generally, it's not us. The demand is offshore. The models are somebody else's. The margin, the part where the value actually compounds, is captured in Redmond and San Francisco, not in Johor or Batam. We are the landlord renting out the ground floor, and it's being told to feel grateful for the rent. Now, I am a capitalist, obviously. Rent is not a dirty word. Collecting rent on land you own is perfectly good business. Singapore has run that playbook for 50 years, and it worked. But do not confuse being the landlord with owning the building. Do not let a country tell itself it is climbing the value chain when what is actually doing is leasing out the basement to the people who own the value chain. And this is where the cable and the chips rhyme, because they're the same story pointed in opposite directions. Malaysia, with its chips, is trying to climb one rung up from doing the low margin work to owning a bit of the high margin design, trying to own more of the building. The cable is the region agreeing to stay one rung down, very comfortable, very well paid, renting the ground to the people who own the compute. Um, but one of those is a strategy. The other one is a lease dressed up as a strategy. Um, Now, so which one are you building? Where is the opportunity? So this brings me to the thing I actually wanted to talk about, the thing underneath both stories. Who wins the AI decade in Southeast Asia? And I'm gonna give you my answer directly because I have money on it, obviously, because of the fund that I run. So I had better believe it. Now, none of this is investment advice. None of it is to be construed any of that way. But I think that the winners will not be the companies that lead with the letters A and I in their deck. And I know that that is not a fashionable thing to say in 2026. Every second founder I meet opens with the model they are building on and the AI native this and the agentic that and the funding tallies. Love it. Somebody counts up all the AI startups that raised this quarter and puts out a chart and everyone nods. And it's not that I am not bullish on AI because I am. Every company is ultimately going to move that way, and I think it's table stakes. But here's what the chart is measuring. It is measuring ambition. It is not measuring durable revenue. Those are very different things. And the gap between them is where founders and their investors, they go to die, is between those numbers. Because here is how value actually works. And it has always worked this way. AI or no AI. Value accrues to whoever controls the scarce thing. Sounds like a classic economic lesson. That is the whole game. Find what is scarce, own it, and the money flows to you. Own something abundant, and you compete it down to nothing. It commoditizes. Um, And so the only question that matters is in Southeast Asia right now, what is actually scarce? And I will tell you what is not scarce. Technology is not scarce anymore. The model is not scarce anymore. The model is becoming commoditized as we see the big competition there. We see open source. And it will ultimately get cheaper and better every single quarter, whether you do anything or not. Building your moat on the model is like building your house on the tide. Here is what is scarce: the customer who already trusts you, the physical network that took years and real pain to build, the license from a regulator who does not hand them out twice, the distribution into the towns and villages and the small shops that no hyperscaler in the world is ever going to bother to map, the relationships, the routes, the nuance of workflows, the position that took 10 years of unglamorous work to build and cannot be copied in a weekend of clever prompting. Those are difficult to replicate. And that is the scarce layer. That is a thing worth owning. And now go back and look at our two stories through that lens because it lights them up. Malaysia is climbing the value chain from packaging into chip design. That is a country trying to move from an abundant thing, cheap, capable labor, which everyone has, to a scarce thing, design capability, which very few have. That is the right instinct, exactly. Own the scarce rung. And the founder version of the same move, the winner is not the one who owns the AI and goes hunting for a customer. The winner is the one who already owns the customer and quietly adds AI on top. the lending business that already has the borrowers and now underwrites them better, the logistics operator that already owns the trucks and the routes and now runs them tighter, the distributor who already reaches 10,000 shops and now forecasts demand for them, that get additional leverage by adding on top. They will never put necessarily AI into the headline. They do not need to. They already own the scarce thing. The AI is just a sharper tool in a hand that already knows the work. And here is the uncomfortable part, the part I want the founders listening to really sit with. Every wave of cheap capital, every shiny new toy, every drop in the price of intelligence, it does not close the gap between those two kinds of companies. It widens it. Because when the tool gets cheap and everyone has it, the tool stops being the difference. And the only thing left that is the difference is the position underneath it, the distribution, the trust, the scarce layer. Cheap AI makes owning a real distribution worth more, not less. So that is where Indelible puts our own focus. I will say it plainly so you can hold me to it. We at Indelible, we back the people who own the scarce layer and are climbing one rung up from it, not the people standing on top of somebody else's scarce layer. We may be seeing people that are servicing those specific ones, enabling, waving a flag, renting, but we are looking at trying to find those niches, own that ground, or at least be climbing towards owning it. Don't spend your life as a founder being a landlord's tenant with a nicer logo. As I said before, money is easy. I said it back in the Malaysia segment, and here it is again. Money is easy. Knowing what to do with it and owning something real to point it at, that is the scarce part. And it doesn't have to be tangible, but build the scarce part. So that is the week. A chip program in Penang and a cable on the seabed. Two seemingly boring stories that are secretly the kind of the same story in my mind. One country trying to climb a rung, one region agreeing to rent out the basement, and underneath both of them, the only question that has ever really mattered in this work is who owns the thing that is scarce. If you are a founder, go and be honest with yourself this week about what you actually own, not what is in your headline, what is in your foundations. If the answer is a really good wrapper on somebody else's model, you may have work to do, and it's better to know it now. What layer within that, if you're taking that model, is so perfectly okay, because those might be the commoditized layers. It's perfectly fine to use a commodity as an input, but what is it that you actually own? What is your scarce resource that you are sitting on, that you are servicing? I'll leave you with that. I'm Kevin Brocklin. This has been Sea of Startups, real, raw, relatable. I write the I write the checks, so I have to be right about this. Come argue with me if you think I'm wrong. Perfectly open to that. Um, and I will see you next week. And that does it for this episode of Sea of Startups. If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, please give it a like, give it a review, subscribe to our channel. A little bit of feedback goes a long way in allowing us to keep on putting out these kind of episodes.